Vibhyo namo namah. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I've been asked to speak on the topic of second initiation, Brahminical initiation, which is a little bit ironic because I don't have the greatest qualifications in the world to do that. But what I thought I would do this morning is share just a couple of references from our Shastras, and particularly the Bhaktivedanta purports to those references, because we all depend on those purports. And I will try to tie them together in such a way that hopefully the significance of these references will become clear to any of you who are taking second initiation today. Second initiation, we call it Brahminical initiation. It should be the initiation of the process of actually qualifying oneself as a Brahmana. What does it mean to qualify oneself as a Brahmana? Well, we have a famous reference from the Smriti that by birth, by default, everyone is a Shudra at birth. Janmana jayate Shudra, samskara tu bhavet dvija. But if you undergo the process of samskara, that means purification, refinement, then you can become twice born. We know there are 12, 13 samskaras that bona fide human beings will undergo in life. If you do not undergo all 13 of these, then you're not a bona fide human being. You're a biologically correct human being. But human life means civilized life, means religious life, and that means samskara. That's why things that are refined, they're called samskrita. And the process of that refinement, or the result of that refinement is called sanskriti. As I said, sanskriti means culture, or really it means refinement. So by this process, one only becomes twice born. It's not enough. If you're a refined human being, it's not enough. You have to go further. So what happens if you take the next step? Veda pathad bhaved vipraha. You can become a learned scholar if you study the Shastra very carefully. This is a big issue in our society. It's a big issue outside of our society also. Nobody wants to read anything in 2024. Least of all, people are prepared to read religious books. Still, somehow or other, we're selling them. There are some people who want to know about God. There will always be people who want to know about God. Do we really want to know about God? That's the thing. Well, we have to study these books. Especially if we're taking second initiation, it's understood. You have this continuum in mind. You've taken your human birth, you've received maybe first initiation, and hopefully you're a refined human being and you've read Prabhupada's books a little bit carefully. That's very good. But actually to be a Brahmana means Brahma janati iti Brahmanaha. Brahmana means to understand what is Brahman. And to understand what is Brahman means to understand what we are not also. I'm not this material body. Instead, I am spirit soul. That means we have to understand the nature of spirit first. And then we have to identify ourselves as that spirit, secondly. So it's a very difficult process, actually. Maharaj was describing this very nicely this morning. It actually takes some qualification. It takes some training. So, but this is Brahminical initiation. We are commencing with this process that let me become a bona fide Brahmin. Let me realize who I am. Aham Brahmasmi. I am Atma. So, Krishna has given us some indications in Bhagavad Gita. What are the qualifications for the Brahmana? He says, when buddhya vishuddhaya yukto dhrityatmanam niyamya cha shabdadin vishayam tyaktva ragadvaisho vyudasya cha viviktasevi laghuashi yatavakaya manasah dhyana yoga paro nityam vairagyam samupashritaha ahankaram balam darpam kamam krodham parigraham vimuchya nirmama shanto brahmabhuyaya kalpate. One becomes Brahman realized when he has these qualifications. What are they? Being purified by intelligence, or having purified intelligence. Either way you can take it. We know there are many people in this world, very, very intelligent people, but their intelligence is impure. Even those who are on the transcendental path, it's confirmed in the 10th canto, they have avishuddha buddhi. Their intelligence is not vishuddha. So Krishna here is mentioning you have to have pure intelligence. We know from the Upanishads, you cannot have you cannot have a pure mind unless you are pure in your activities. You cannot you cannot have good intelligence unless your mind is pure. You cannot have good activities unless you are controlled. This is the idea. And by eating, if you eat purified things, as we heard this morning, then your mind will be purified, your activities will follow, the intelligence will be purified as well. These things are very important. Why do we do what we do? This is the younger generation always asking this question about Hinduism. Why do we do the things that we do? We don't know. Nobody's ever told us. So those of you who are taking second initiation, you're taking it upon yourself to educate yourself. Why am I doing this? What do I really want from this? And when you get the wisdom, then you have to share that wisdom as well. So being purified intelligence is one step. Controlling the mind with determination, because you cannot control your mind without being determined. Your mind will sometimes control you if you're not determined. Determination is a very important quality to have. Giving up the objects of sense gratification, being freed from attachment and hatred. One who lives in a secluded place, that means apart from non-devotees, who eats little, who controls his body, mind, and power of speech, who is always in trance and is detached, free from false ego, false strength, false pride, lust, anger, and the acceptance of material things, free from false proprietorship, and peaceful. Such a person is certainly elevated to the position of self-realization. Buddhya vishuddhaya yukto, he's equipped with purified intelligence. Dhritya, he has, by determination, atmanam niyamya, controlled himself. What does atma mean? What does atma mean? Self. What is it? What is the self? Spirit self. What else? Atma. What is it? What else does it mean? Mind. What else? Body. All three of them. Just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Sarvatma snapanam param vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. Why does he say Sarvatma snapanam? Because you're purifying all three by performing Sankirtan. Mind is purified, body is even purified. What to speak of the Atma? Atma can mean the mind also. So, anyway, Atmanam niyamyacha, we control all three. Shabdadin vishayam tyaktva, we give up hearing topics about mundane sense gratification. Raga dveshao vyudasya cha, and regarding attachment and hatred, we give that up. Devotee isn't disgusted or repulsed by anything or anyone else, and he's not attached to anyone or anything else. That's not easy. Have you tried it? It's really not easy. It does take a long time in general. Much practice and much endeavor. All the qualities that were mentioned here, that's what it takes. So then, vivikta sevi, You are situated a little bit separately, literally is what it means. Vivikta means separate. Not necessarily, secluded also means separate. Just like here we have even the householders, certainly the brahmacharis, they're living a separate existence from the material world in the ashram. But even the householders, they have what? Vrindavan colony. The sign says, this is not a public place. Vivikta seva. They are living separately. And laghuashi. Laghuashi means you are someone who eats only a little bit. There are some people who live to eat. Instead, one should eat to live. Means if the body doesn't require much, you don't take much. Don't listen to your tongue. That's part of the next qualification mentioned here. Yetta vak, kaya, manasaha. All three. They're all under control. Vak, kaya, manas. The mind, the body, and not vak means speech, but also tongue is included in that. So, if you do this, then you can be dhyana yoga para. You can be constantly devoted to meditation on Krishna. Nityam. It's qualified here. Just like later on we hear, santushta satatam yogi. How often are you a yogi in chapter 12? How often? Santushta satatam yogi. All the time. Not just in the morning. Sometimes it so happens. In the morning we're devotees, and in the evening we're demons. That's not Brahminical life. That's not self-realization. That's not Brahmabhuta, Gyan. So we have to work on it. Initiation means just a beginning. You may not be fully qualified, but according to chapter 3, text 33, Srila Prabhupada explains very nicely. I'll just quickly read it for you. He says, one should have firm faith in this injunction without envying the Lord. There are many philosophers who write commentaries on Bhagavad Gita, but they have no faith in Krishna. They will never be liberated from the bondage of fruit of action. But this is for all of us, so listen carefully. An ordinary man with firm faith in the eternal injunctions of the Lord, even though unable to execute such orders, becomes liberated from the bondage of the law of karma. In the beginning of Krishna consciousness, one may not fully discharge the injunction of the Lord. But because one is not resentful of this principle and works sincerely without consideration of defeat and hopelessness, he will surely be promoted to the stage of pure Krishna consciousness. And we're talking about an interim stage here. Brahminical initiation is not the end. It's an interim stage. It's an important step towards coming to Krishna consciousness, as we will see as we return to this passage of Bhagavad Gita. Ahankaram balam darpam kamam krodham parigraham vimuchya. A whole list of items that we are to become free from. First and foremost, free from what? Ahankara. Right? They have this, Prahladananda Maharaj, he made a joke about this. Ahamkara. I am my car. People have the big, Mercedes or Rolls Royce or something, and they just want everyone to know it. Ahankara. We have to be free of this false ego. Balam. False strength. What is your real strength? Srila Prabhupada said when he was 20 years old, in his early 20s, as a young householder, he went to Jagannath Puri, and he was jumping high, even in the ocean, in the waves, swimming nicely. And he said, now I cannot do that. Every one of you, if you make it that far to begin with, by the time you're old, you'll be worn down by the process of Maya and bereft of your false strength. So don't put your faith in that. And false strength doesn't just mean physical strength also. Sometimes your mental strength will be worn down by the process of Maya. And this is what Brahminical initiation is for. Those who are seriously endeavoring to transcend this conditioning. That's the important thing. So, ahankaram balam dardapam. Oh, this is a huge one, isn't it? Especially here in South Asia, sometimes it seems. I used to think people here are so attached to money, right? It's well known. Everybody knows. Money is, they'll do anything for money. But actually, the money is not the end goal, is it? Why do we want money? Prestige. We have dardapa. We have conceit, proud. So this is another big issue. Kamam, the standard list of enemies, shatari, we say. Lust, krodham, anger, parigraham, taking too many things that you don't really need. Our lists of needs and our lists of wants, those are two different things. What you really need is pretty simple. You need 2-3 doshas or idlis, each meal, and you need 5 or 6 feet of space that you can lie down comfortably. That's what we really need. Little shelter over the head, maybe some clothes. Here in South India, you don't require so many clothes. North India right now, it's pretty cold. 7 degrees last time I checked. 7 degrees. Think about it. So, parigraham means to accept so many things. But vimuchya, we are free from that. And nirmama, therefore you don't have this attitude that it's mine. Just like China, every few minutes, it seems, China is coming on the Indian border somewhere. If not over there in Ladakh, then it will be over there in north of Myanmar, or over there in near Manipura and all these places. Or in the Middle East, the Palestinians and the Jews, they can never have peace, it seems, isn't it? They just don't want it, really. They actually want to fight forever. That's the problem. So this is called, the opposite of this is nirmama. You don't have this idea that it's mine and you've taken it from me and we have to fight now. Therefore, Shanta. Shanta means he's peaceful. And Krishna says, Brahmabhuyaya kalpate. If you have these qualifications, then you get Brahmabhuta Gyan. What is that Brahmabhuta Gyan? It has some characteristics. The brahmacharis will know, and the householders should know the next verse. What is it? Anyone? Chapter 18, text 54? That's a hint. Brahmabhuta prasannatma na shochati na kankshati samat sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labhate param. Why is it important? Why is it important to try to go through all these stages and get Brahmabhuta Gyan, or to realize that we are not this body? Because, Krishna says, if you have real Brahmabhuta Gyan, madbhaktim labhate param, then you get real bhakti, bhakti param. There are different kinds of bhakti. In the beginning, because we're the kind of person Prabhupada was talking about when we quoted chapter 3, text 31 purport, who can't follow everything, that means that we don't really have full realization. And without that full realization, we cannot be liberated. So what kind of bhakti are we practicing when we're in that consciousness? Maharaj was mentioning this morning, the term that I'm thinking of is, we can call it, Rupa Goswami does call it, bhakti abhasa, or chaya bhakti. A semblance of bhakti. Looks like bhakti. Pseudo bhakti, you can say. Quasi bhakti, better yet. Probate bhakti. We're criminals. We have this criminal mentality. But we've accepted a guru. We're on probation. And as long as we behave and don't violate our probation, then we'll go back to Godhead. We will advance. How do we advance? Yasya prasadad. By His divine grace, not by our own efforts. So, mad bhaktim lebhate param, if you want this real bhakti, then you have to be Brahmabhuta. And what is the symptom? Prasannatma, always joyful. If you get depressed, you're not liberated yet. If you get not prasannatma, but, if you get silly and frivolous and giddy when things are going right, this is what happens also. In other words, complacent, then we're under the influence of the material energy. It's not really prasanna ta. It's something else. And so prasannatma, a person who's always joyful, in touch with himself, in touch with Krishna consciousness, this person can practice parabhakti, or transcendental bhakti. And some other symptoms are given, 2 of them. Na shochati, na kangshati. What does that mean? Na shochati means you're not complaining. Raise your hand if you complain sometimes. You don't have to raise your hand. But in our minds, isn't it? We kind of we like to blame somebody else for our situation. There's nobody to blame. Whatever, atma kritam vipakam. I cooked this thing, now I have to eat it. This is what Prahlad Maharaj says. Tatyanukampam susamikshamano bhunjatma evatma kritam vipakam. Punjatma evatma kritam vipakam. I have to eat it. That's literally what he says. Whatever I cooked, I have to eat it. Bas. So, tadbhagda purvir vidathan namaste jiveta yo mukti pade sadaya bhak. If you carry on, despite all your bad karma or your good karma, whatever Maya throws at you, to bewilder you, to distract you, to waste your time, to test your faith, if you just carry on with determination, as we already mentioned, and cultivate these qualities and thus come to this level of real Brahmabhuta Gyan, then you will go back to Godhead. You will go back to Godhead. And the symptom of this na shochati and na kangshati, this is the other one. Na kangshati, what does it mean? We have a big word nowadays. People talk about expectations, isn't it? Akanksha, this is literally what it means. Na kangshati. We're not expecting something, or not hankering after something that we don't have. In other words, we're not envious of others. If you're hankering after something that you don't have, that means you're hankering after something that somebody else does have. And if that is our consciousness, that is animal consciousness. A devotee should be self-satisfied. Yes, tu atma ratireva syat, Krishna says. And then what is the real test of all these qualities? Sama sarveshu bhuteshu. And Prabhupada warns us about this. Sama sarveshu bhuteshu. What does it mean? You can be actually impartial towards all others. You can be equal to all others. But Prabhupada warns us about this in Ishopanishad. I think it's mantra 10 or 9 if I'm not mistaken. Be careful of people who try to sell you this idea, but they themselves are politicians especially. It does not work. It's bogus. It's cheating. Politicians are constantly trying to homogenize society while they're dividing people into various groups that fight each other. It's ironic. Under the rubric of equality, they're trying to divide as many people as they can and exploit those groups. We see it all the time. In America, we have this, racial unrest, and here you have, communal unrest, and, all different groups. And politicians are very expert. They thrive, actually. They depend on dividing people and then ruling them, exploiting them. So that's not the kind of pseudo-equality that we're talking about. We're talking about real equality comes from freedom from envy. When you're not envious, you're not hankering, you're not lamenting, and you're happy within yourself, then you can actually be equal. You can see others equally, and you can treat others equally. This is Brahminical life. This is what a Brahmin actually should be. Don't be Ponga Pandit. I don't know how you say that in Tamil. Bogus, he just wears a thread only. That's his only qualification. Or maybe birth, and there's another one. So, if we actually come to this stage of Brahminical qualification, then what do we get? Mad bhaktim labhate param. And why do we want this? That's the next verse, Krishna says. There's a continuum here, as I said. I'm trying to point this out. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tatvataha. Tato mam tatvato gyatva vishate taranantaram. How many places in Bhagavad Gita does Krishna say this? You have to understand me as I am. Tatvataha. How many? Who can tell me? Another verse it says this. Janma karma chamedivam evam yoveti tatvataha. In truth, in fact, you have to understand me. And Krishna says the only way to do that is through bhakti. And the way that you get bhakti is that you stabilize your consciousness such that you can practice bhakti undisturbed. Otherwise, your bhakti will not be sthira bhakti, it will be asthira. It will be very, very shaky. Here in this purport to texts 51 through 53, Srila Prabhupada says, when one is purified by intelligence, he keeps himself in the mode of goodness. This is Brahminical life. Thus one becomes the controller of the mind and is always in trance. He's not attached to the objects of sense gratification, and he's free from attachment and hatred in his activities. Such a detached person naturally prefers to live in a secluded place. He does not eat more than what he requires, and he controls the activities of his body and mind. I'm just reading the purport. He has no false ego, but because he does not accept the material body as himself, nor has he a desire to make the body fat and strong by accepting so many material things. Nowadays in India, what's the big pastime among the young men especially? They lift weights. Have you seen this? I was in Tiruchendur. Usually all the Brahmins, they used to be, well, fat Brahmins. Fat Brahmins, but you also find skinny Brahmins. But now you find these very, muscular guys with, six-pack abs and big biceps and, tattoos even they have. Even devotees I've seen doing this. I don't know what kind of conception of life that comes from, but... So, now I've lost my train of thought. Each little controls the body, the mind, etc. Prabhupada is mentioning this. So, he's satisfied with everything that is offered to him. How? By the grace of the Lord. Whatever comes to us, if we can accept that as the grace of the Lord, then we're advanced. Without trying to envy others or hanker or steal from others. This is the Ishopanishad, first verse. Ishavasyam idam sarvam. All this that you see, it's belonging to Isha only, not yours. So, this is what Prabhupada says here. So, and then he sums it up in the end. Chapter 2, text 70, the last verse. Chapter 2, anybody knows Bhagavad Gita? I'll give you a hint. Apuryamanam achalam pratishtham. Louder. Should be roaring. Okay, you need to study more, I think. A few brahmacharis only know this. Samudramapa pravashanti yadvat tadvat kama yam pravashanti sarve sashantam apnoti na kama kami. Like an ocean, we should be stable, peaceful, deep, like an ocean. That is Brahminical life. Now, Brahminical life has some advantages also in Krishna consciousness and devotional service. Because, for example, deity worship, you cannot worship the deity, you can't even cook for the deity, technically, unless you have the Brahminical initiation, because the consciousness, it's assumed that the consciousness should be purified to approach God. Not that we just initiate anybody and everybody because we need a warm body there to do the seva, to make things look like it's a show bottle. No. So Prabhupada is mentioning this also in Canto 2, Chapter 3, text number 22. He says, especially for the householder devotees, householders, the path of deity worship is strongly recommended. As far as possible, every householder, by the direction of the spiritual master. must install the deity of Vishnu. Forms like Radha Krishna, Lakshmi Narayan, or Sitaram especially, or any other form of the Lord, like Narasimha, Varaha, Gauranitai, Matsya, Kurma, Shalagram, Shiva, and many other forms of Vishnu, like Trivikrama, Keshava, Achyuta, Vasudeva, Narayana, and Damodara, as recommended in the Vaishnava Tantras or Puranas. And one's family should worship strictly according to the directions and regulations of Archana Vidhi. Vidhivat Puja should be there. Not, Yajantiya Vidhi Purvagam. You can't make up your own rules of deity worship. People do this. It's wrong. You have to follow the standards. The standards are written there in the Shastras or given by tradition, either way. Any member of the family who is above 12 years of age should be initiated by a bona fide spiritual master, and all the members of the household should be engaged in deity service of the Lord, beginning from morning 4 a.m. till night 10 p.m. by performing Mangalarati, Nirajana, Archana Puja, Kirtana, Shringara, Bhoga, Vaikali, Sandhya Aratri, Pata, Bhoga at night, Shayan Aratri, etc. Engagement in such worship of the deity under the direction of the bona fide spiritual master will greatly help the householders to purify their very existence and make rapid progress in spiritual knowledge. Simple, theoretical book knowledge is not sufficient for the neophyte devotee. Book knowledge is theoretical, whereas the archana process is practical. Spiritual knowledge must be developed by a combination of theoretical and practical knowledge, and that is the guaranteed way for attainment of spiritual perfection. So, what to speak of people who don't even have book knowledge because they don't open the books? Anybody know chapter 4, text 10? Those who are taking Brahminical initiation, can one of you please tell me what is Bhagavad Gita chapter 4, text number 10. I will give you a hint because I'm liberal. Vita raga bhaya krodha manmaya mamupashataha bahavo jnana tapasa puta madbhavam agataha. Krishna says, they are purified by the austerity of knowledge. Why does knowledge purify us? First of all, you have to open up the book. That's the first thing. If you haven't opened the book yet, then you don't know the verses when I ask you, or you will not be able to tell what even the theoretical knowledge is, what to speak of the practical knowledge. But you have to open the book and study. In the association of devotees especially, that's recommended by Rupa Goswami. Anybody know the verse from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, I'm thinking? Srimad Bhagavatam asadorasikai saha. One should, not only devotees, rasika devotees who really have a taste for Srimad Bhagavatam. With those people you have to study. So, that is the first thing. You have to accumulate knowledge, theoretical knowledge. Then the secondary austerity of knowledge is what? What happens when you read Srila Prabhupada's books? Those who read Srila Prabhupada's books, they know. Those who don't read Srila Prabhupada's books, you don't have an answer for this question. So somebody who reads Prabhupada's books, please tell me, what do you have to do once you read Srila Prabhupada's books? Anything. What do you have to do? What do these books impel? What kind of response do they demand of us? You have to practice this. You have to follow what it says. You have to do something. You have to change your life. That Maharaj mentioned this morning. Janata agha viplava. It is a radical revolution in the sinful character of the people in general. The Srimad Bhagavatam. Janta, we have, right, Bharatiya Janata Party, now making headway in the south, according to the news. So Janta agha viplava. When you have a whole Janta, whole loka, the people who are absorbed in sin, agha, ugliness, pungent, inauspicious life, ugra karma, then this Srimad Bhagavatam represents what? Viplava. Do you have this word in Tamil? Viplava? Viplava means to like overturn things, just really mess things up. It's meant to do that. If that's not happening, you're not hearing. Sorry to say. It should change you, Bhagavatam. So that's the second austerity of knowledge. You have to embrace that knowledge and apply it in your own life. Then when you speak, then it has some meaning to others. They feel it. What is that verse? 3:25:25. Satam prasangat mama virya samvida. It becomes very potent when we discuss Srimad Bhagavatam amongst the pure devotees, sincere devotees. So that's the secondary austerity of knowledge. And third austerity of knowledge, then what do? You have taken the trouble to learn something. You have applied it in your life and thereby realized. What does it mean? Now what do? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Bharatiya bhumite hoilo manusya janmajar janmashartha kori goro parupakar. So that's what we're talking about. Janmashartha kori, the first two austerities. Goro parupakar, to do something for others, that is the third austerity and final austerity of knowledge. So when we say shamo dhamma tapa shaucham kshantirarjavameva chetyadi, in Bhagavad Gita, these are also the Brahminical qualities Krishna mentions later, then this is what we mean. Your life, as we heard this morning, once you are initiated, it no longer belongs to you. You cannot make your own decisions. You're a slave now. Get it into your system. Don't have any doubts about this. You cannot make choices. Now, from now on, it's whatever Krishna wants. Like a robot. Not exactly like a robot. It's a learned labor of love, Srila Prabhupada says. Those who know his books have heard this. So, we have to engage in this process, especially those who are taking Brahminical initiation. It is awarded. You cannot ask for Brahminical initiation. It is something that the spiritual master awards you. First initiation you can request. Second initiation is given to you. Because the spiritual master recommends you have some adhikar to proceed further. Upanishad, as the Upanishad means, actually, you've moved a little closer. Now everybody likes to sit in the very back of the room and lecture. If you move closer and you're hearing tuned in, that is what it means. Really focused. So now you have this opportunity to develop these Brahminical qualities ultimately to the point of perfection, which means you realize I'm not this body, and on that platform there's no obstruction to devotional service. After an arta nivritti, then devotional service takes off like a bullet. Very fast. There's nothing to obstruct your advancement after you finish with an arta nivritti. So get through that stage. By performing the austerity of knowledge, especially. And, of course, we've been emphasizing here as well, deity worship for the householders, especially in the 7th canto, chapter, is it 5 or 15? I don't remember. Srila Prabhupada talks about this verses, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu. What is the chapter? I can't remember. Anyway, you know the verses. So when he talks about Archanam, Srila Prabhupada says, again, same thing. This is especially important for the householders. Now, if you're living across the street from the temple, you don't have to do all this at home. And in fact, Srila Prabhupada did not encourage it. Srila Prabhupada said to the householders living in the community, they should come to the temple and worship the temple deity, and in this way they get the same benefit. But why is that necessary, especially for householders? Srila Prabhupada explains in that purport. Because the householders, especially those who are busy interacting with the outside world, as Maharaj mentioned this morning, you know, that it has an effect on the consciousness. It wears down our Krishna consciousness. Sometimes, I'm sorry to say, it even erodes our Krishna consciousness if we're not so careful about what we eat, as we heard, or about what we hear, or about what we see, or what we look at, or what we touch, or all these things. For the householders especially, because they're in contact more directly with Maya than the renunciates. So they have to be very careful. And to counteract all that kusanga, bad association, they are particularly expected to take to the path of deity worship. In fact, in that same purport, Srila Prabhupada goes so far as to say, if a householder does not take to the path of deity worship after being twice initiated, then his fall, this is a direct quote, his fall down is positively assured, end quote. So it's very serious. We should take this as a great opportunity. Srila Prabhupada many times said that those who are taking Brahminical initiation in particular, said that this ISKCON society is especially meant to create such a class of Brahmanas. We don't have time now, but what time is it, by the way? Okay. Yeah, so I have to end soon. But in the 10th canto, when we hear about how Nanda Maharaj was distributing cows and other valuables in charity to the Brahmanas, Srila Prabhupada emphasizes in those purports, which you can study in your own time, that these are not, as we said earlier, just, Ponga Pandits, bogus, Brahmins. But they're really qualified Brahmins according to the ways that we have been discussing this morning. And Prabhupada also goes further to say that the International Society for Krishna Consciousness is especially meant for creating this class, because no one else can preach Krishna consciousness. This is a very important subsection of his greater instruction to, excuse me, to establish Varnashrama Dharma within ISKCON. And in that regard, I should at least mention that the whole conversation that we have summarized from chapter 18 of the Bhagavad Gita was actually introduced by Krishna himself when he said, Shreyan swadharmo viguna paradharmat sanushtitat swabhavaniyatam karma kurvan napnoti kilbisham sahajam karma kauntaya sadosham api natyajet sarvaram bhahi doshena bhumenagnir divavrataha. That means it's better to engage in one's own occupation, even though one may perform it imperfectly, than to accept another's occupation and perform it, so-called, perfectly. Duties prescribed according to one's nature are never affected by sinful activities. Every endeavor is covered by some fault, just as fire is covered by smoke. Therefore, one should not give up the work born of his nature, O son of Kunti, even if such work is full of fault. One who is self-controlled and unattached and who disregards all material enjoyments can obtain, by practice of renunciation, the highest perfect stage of freedom from reaction. O son of Kunti, learn from me how one who has achieved this perfection can attain to the supreme perfectional stage, Brahman, the highest stage of knowledge, by acting in the way I shall now summarize. And that is what we've already read. So, these are just a few thoughts for those of you who are taking Brahminical initiation. I would like to thank you for taking this step, and it's a very important demonstration of commitment to Srila Prabhupada and your spiritual master and the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in general. As we said, it is so important that we have the proper examples in society, because there are some things that can only come from that. Not everything is explicit in the books, but those who are ready to embrace and, exemplify paramparagata shishtachara, I think you understand, that those persons are the leaders, the natural leaders of society, and they will get the great benefit of Srila Prabhupada's blessings by fulfilling his desire. Okay, so I think maybe it's time for me to stop. I don't know if I'm asking for questions or not. Sorry? Okay, so yeah, we have to proceed with the program. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.